Hello.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yeah.
So let us start the class. Good morning to all.
Good morning, sir.
So in this, good morning. So in this class, we will continue our discussion on classification methods. So in the previous class, we have discussed about nearest neighbor classifier, right? So in this class, we will discuss about Bayesian classification. So let me share the screen. Okay. So let us consider the same example of this fish classification because the context is known for you. So here, from the images of the fishes that are coming on the conveyor belt, we want to classify into two different categories. Hope you are able to see the notes here, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So see, assume that I want to set up a small automated industry. Also, where I want to automate this process, okay, of fish classification. Assume that I have not made any measurements so far. That means I have not measured some fishes, their lengths or widths or any other features. I just have with me, I'm just starting, okay, to set up a automated mechanism for fish classification. Okay, now the question is, I know the place where I want to set up this, okay, and I would like to start from the day one an automated classification procedure or mechanism. Can one of you suggest what should what may be my approach for automated classification on day one? Any answers?
So do we have any training examples, or is this like every day we get one example?
Yeah, we just started. We don't have any examples to take the measurements. From the initial first fish itself, I want to put into two categories. One in sea bass, another in Solomon. So what, any suggestion on how do I go about?
Sir, maybe we could extract a feature. We could select a particular feature and calculate it,
Mm.
and then if two images have that feature, if it differs a lot, then you put them into two different bins, something like that.
Okay, but I don't have the provision even to make measurements. Okay, assume that my manager is very okay. He's like a dictator. He just wanted me to do it without giving any even provision for measurements.
So we have to either guess it. First one, we'll have to make an educated guess as to what the fish is without relying on anything. That would be till we get some decent number of examples, we could do that. Once we get that,
Yeah.
then we could use comparisons.
Okay, that will follow it up. See, when say anyway, I will keep putting into two categories. I need to put into two categories without making any measurements. But while putting, I will keep making measurements, and then I will use my domain knowledge to prepare the training samples. So the training samples itself are not ready now. That's the scenario. Okay. So in such case, okay. So see, as I said, we know the place where we are setting up this fish industry. So based on the place and or the location, will you be able to get some information of which kind of fishes are more prominent in that location, or which kind of fishes uh, uh, occur more frequently in that area, and so on? Can we get such an information?
Yes, sir.
And if, yeah, yes. So we can get such information. Such information can be obtained from the fisherman, who usually take the fishes from there. So they may roughly say that these, say we may have two classes, class 1 being Solomon, and class 2, let it be sea bass. Okay, so they may say that in this region, okay, so sea bass fishes are more. Okay, so roughly among the fishes that they are collecting, okay, roughly 70 fishes they are collecting in a day out of 100 sea bass, and 30 fishes Solomon. This information may be obtained from fishermen. Okay, this we can collect, right? This doesn't need any measurements, right? And this information, this kind of information is referred to as a priori information, or this will enable us to find out the a priori probabilities. Now, what are these a priori probabilities? These probabilities are found without making any measurements. Okay, just based on the domain knowledge. Okay, so I know that in this location, sea bass are more probable than Solomon. Now, if I want to make these as a priori probabilities, what should I keep as P of omega 2? What should I keep as P of omega 1? From this information that is given. It is
0.3, 0.7.
Yeah, 0.3 and 0.7. Okay, so this kind of information usually is very important, is also important. Okay, especially say for example, if I take a satellite image through synthetic aperture radar sensor, I know that what kind of noise gets added, and I also know roughly statistically the distribution of the noise. So this all comes under the a priori information. If I know that it is a face classification problem, okay, roughly I know face has this much shape, this much width, okay, some information about the face. So this kind of information can also be used as a priori information. If I'm classifying, say for example, Indians versus say Americans, I can also get some kind of a priori information on the color. So similarly, at least in some of the tasks, we have a guiding information even before making any measurements. Okay, that is referred to as prior probability or a priori probability. So this prior probability is one of the important information for making a decision making process in or making an automated classification system. Now assume that using prior probability, if you want to make a automated classification, then what do you suggest in this scenario? What may be the classification rule I can apply to make the classification? Using only the prior probability. What do you think? See, as I said, we need to start the automated classification from the first sample. No, I just got this information from fisherman or someone. Okay, based on the location, I know the sea, the kind of water there. Okay, and based on that water, I can tell that roughly this kind of fishes may be more probable. Okay, so some such information I have either through my analysis of the other surroundings or the other informations. Okay, or from some domain knowledge. Okay, so now given this prior information, prior probabilities alone, if I want to make a classification, how do you think I will make a classification?
Select, I don't know, have 100 numbers, select a number randomly. If it's like between 1 to 70, just predict CBUS. So that would make it uniform as well.
Okay, the problem there is, see, if I do that, so what you said is you have 100 fishes, you keep coming, so throw a random number. Okay, so such that actually if it is 1 or 2 you can throw. Okay, so if it comes 1, you put into CBUS. Okay, 2 Solomon, but you can make that 1 may come 170 times, 2 may come 30 times. Okay, in the runs I make. Okay, I can make an experiment like that. But if I do that, do you think I will be confident that I can at least assure this much of classification like error, accuracy, or this much of error? Can I quantify it with better certainty? At least can I assure that I will be surely be getting at least this much of accuracy?
Sir, maybe we can do like for every 10 samples, we put 3 Solomon and 7 CBUSes.
Okay, so that's what the other student also have said. If you do that, see what may happen is you may be say it's like a multiple choice question. Okay, where you don't know anything and you keep putting say A somewhere, B somewhere, C somewhere, and D somewhere. Okay, and the answer may be B, you may be putting A there. Okay, answer may be A, you may be putting C there, or you may be putting correct answer also. But that is again a very complex thing to analyze and understand. What is the final accuracy? You are not confident of at least, say I know that at least 70 A's are there. Okay, and 30 B's are there. Even then if I keep this jumbling between them, I will not be ensuring at least some kind of probability. Here, is there any better way or easier way?
Directly predict CBUS for the first one. So there will be 70% accuracy.
Yeah, the classification rule may be, so whichever probability of omega 1 is greater than probability of omega 2, okay, put the sample X to omega 1 class. Okay, else put the sample X to omega 2 class. If I do that, okay, if I do in this way, what is the probability I may get? Probability of accuracy in this case. What probability of accuracy can I say if I make 100 fishes classified in this way? Well, I can at least ensure that, okay, how many number of fishes may be correctly classified?
70%.
Because this rule, what does this rule do? If I apply this rule now, okay, what does this rule enforce now in this scenario? That means, say here, okay, here you have P of omega 2 is greater than P of omega 1. Okay, in this example, as P of omega 2 is equal to 0.7. Okay, so that means the rule says what? Put what? What does this rule say? Put all X to
C2, C bus.
Omega 2 class, okay, or C2 class, okay. So omega 2 class or C2 class, I'm using interchangingly. Please make a note of it. Okay, so omega 1 or C1, omega 2 or C2, okay. Okay, so I think let us write omega 1 itself then. Okay. So from now on, the notation omega 1 I am using for class category. Okay, omega 2, omega 1, and probabilities of them will be anyway, whichever is the notation I am introducing, please make a note of it. Okay. So now see in any classification problem, which are important. One is classification rule. Second one, what that is important is the percentage of accuracy. Okay, or the class probability of error. So what is probability of error in this case?
30%.
Yeah, it is, see, 30% fine, but I want to write a general expression for probability of error. Can one of you tell what may be the general expression in this case where I am using prior probability for taking a decision?
So 1 minus P of W2.
1 minus, but not necessarily always P of W2 can be
I
greater
mean the
than
one,
P
the
of W1.
largest one.
So what should I write now? 1 minus? Give me some simpler way of writing, because few things that are very important is translating the like our intuition or the understanding or verbal descriptions to mathematics. Okay, that's very important in this field. Okay, so what should I write now?
P of omega 1.
P of omega 1, how do I write? If I write P of omega 1, then sometimes P of omega 1 itself may be high.
Maximum of P of omega I.
Okay, so is error equal to maximum of P of omega I?
Minimum.
1 minus maximum of.
Yeah, 1 minus maximum of, okay, P of omega I. Okay, or P of omega 1 comma P of omega 2 in this case. In general, it is P of omega I. Okay, so I can write like this. Fine, very good. This is also equal to, somebody has said, minimum of, okay, P of omega I. Okay, but which one do you suggest? Can I go for writing the first way of error, or second way of? Okay, should I write 1 minus maximum or minimum of P of omega I? Which do you suggest me as a better option to write the probability of error?
First one, sir.
Okay, why?
As all samples are being classified into maximum probability class,
Okay.
every other class samples are being classified errorly, like wrongly. First
Yeah,
one
I
we should
agree.
write.
So intuitively, whatever you are saying is very well conveyed by first expression. That is agreed. But is there any other importance for writing the first one rather than the second one?
For this case, it actually satisfies, but if there are multiple inputs, we might not satisfy.
Yeah, if there are multiple,
Like more than two outcomes.
yeah, more than two classes. Okay, so if there are more than two classes, okay, then what will happen? The probability of decision, see, this is the classification rule is important. This is the decision rule. Okay, in some sense, classification rule or decision rule is important, and probability of error, both are important. So in now, let us write the general expressions for multi-class classification problem. Here what we are discussing is classification using only prior probability or prior knowledge. Okay, that's what we are discussing now. So in general, for say in multi-class classification, can you please tell now the rule for decision rule? for classification. How should I write the decision rule? This first thing, please tell. I am giving time to get your answers. And then the probability of error. Error in classification. Yeah. Multi-class classification where you have actually say omega 1, omega 2 up to omega c. Okay, C classes. Yeah, please tell. I didn't get a single answer. Decision rule is what?
If P of omega I equals maximum of P of omega I,
Okay,
then X belongs to omega I.
X belongs to omega j. Okay, this is fine. Okay, this is the decision rule. In other words,
Omega i's. X belongs
Huh?
to omega I.
right, very good. X belongs to omega I. Very good. Okay, this is the maximum rule, or X belongs to omega I. Okay, where P of omega if, okay, P of omega I is the maximum of. So if say for example, I may write omega I is equal to arc max. This notation you people remember? Okay, I star. So say arc max I star. I star. So what is this I star? I star is the argument or the class label. Okay. So our omega I itself is the class label. I can write omega I star. Okay. So omega I is say second class, third class, whatever is the class label. And arg max is applied on probability. That means I'm finding the maximum among the class probabilities, a priori probabilities. And whichever class has the higher, that I star, Wi star X belongs to. Okay. Fine. Is this notation also clear?
Sir, no, sir. I don't understand this arc.
Yeah, very good. So see, max, max simply is maximum of all omega I.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry, maximum of whatever I put here. Okay, but if I say that, see in a histogram, assume that since you know the histogram, I will explain with histogram. Okay, so I assume that in histogram, okay, so assume that this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so what I want to get is say this may be say 10, okay, and this may be some 8, okay, and so on, other values are there. Now what I want to get is among these 6 values, say this histogram I will write h of, okay, h of I is the histogram value. Now see, if I want to get the maximum value in the histogram, what is its maximum value in the histogram? It is max of hi, okay, is equal to maximum value, that is equal to 10. Fine, but I'm not interested in maximum value. I'm interested in the index where the maximum value has occurred. Then how do I write it? I want the answer to be 5 because the index where maximum value has occurred. So how do I write it? Is by using argmax. Argmax, okay, hi. That means I look for maximum in hi, but I will take the argument as the output. Okay, that is argmax. Okay, this can be written as small a as well. Okay, small a, or times they will write capital also. Okay, so this is argmax. Is this clear now?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, good. So now this is say X belongs to omega I star if omega I star is the argmax of P of omega I. Okay. Right. So now what is the probability of error in this case? See, you have omega 1, omega 2, omega 3. Assume that 3 classes. Okay. So probability of omega 1 may be 0.6, omega 2 may be 0.2, omega 3 also 0.2. In that case, what is the probability of error? Okay, through when I classify through a priori decision rule or prior probability alone. What is the probability of error?
1 minus the max of P of omega I. Max of all the P of.
Right, omega I. That's fine. Okay, probability rule. Or you can't write here minimum of P of omega I. Please note that. Okay, can we write it? Minimum of P of omega I?
No, sir.
No, because omega 2, omega 3 both are P of omega 2, omega 3, both may be 0.2. Okay, so each of the, other than the, we are classifying only with the maximum probability. And so only we are confident only up to that. So 1 minus of that gives the error directly. Okay, any other category if you put into, they they goes into, in fact, any of the sample from other category, if they occur in the training samples or the data, okay, they will be misclassified by our rule. Fine. Okay. So now the question is this a very good rule for classification? Huh? Is this a very elegant rule
No.
for classification? No. So what is the problem with this?
Like high probability.
It is.
So there is no scope of increasing the accuracy. It's
right. There is no scope of the accuracy. You are fixing it, okay, and going. See, it is on the other extreme of the nearest neighbor classifier. In the nearest neighbor classifier, what you are doing? Every time you are comparing with the training samples, all training samples. Okay, and then you are matching with the closest training sample and assigning its label. Here, on the other hand, you are fixing the prior probability, I inquired well, I say, and then fix it. Okay, you just follow me, that's all. Okay, whether you find it wrong or correct, okay, even if you have scope for improvement, don't bother about it. Okay, so this is on the other side. So now what do you suggest as a improvement? How can we improve this?
So
what? No answers? Yeah.
What information we might have, like if we have some information about how we can classify it, maybe when it is not clear as to which one we should classify, we can use this rule.
Yeah. So now what we want to do is we will start making measurements. Okay, we say and go to the manager that, okay, it's fine. If you want me to classify like this, we'll be able to do it. Okay, but you will not be getting more than this, benefit. Based on the scenarios, it may turn up to be not optimal, and it's not at all optimal. It may turn up to be a loss as well. Okay, then what more to do something more, you need to make measurements. Okay, so now let us start making measurements, okay, from some given samples and prepare the training data. Okay, so let's make measurements. So assume that with the make measurements and then, okay, improve the classification rule and decision rule and error classification accuracy. Okay. Okay, so now let us see, I made the measurements. So I have now omega 1 class samples and omega 2 class samples. Assume that as a standard example, we are taking 100 samples of omega 1. Okay, and another 100 samples of omega 2 class. Okay, I made the measurements. So I have x1, x2, and so on. See what are all these measurements? What do we mean by measurements here?
Features for the individual process, length, width, height, etc.
Yeah, right. So these are all the features. So on, I have up to x200. Okay, so assume that I have now made these measurements. Each x is a, so even though I'm writing x here, okay, please see distinction between small x and capital X. Okay, so each capital X has all the small x, x1 to xd. Okay, for simplicity of notation, I'm writing like this. Okay, both sample index also down, okay, and the feature index also down. But please make note from the capital and smalls. And even in your exam papers or whenever you write assignments exams, please make the notation very important. Okay, so I should be able to distinguish whether it is a sample or a feature. Okay, fine. Okay, so now I have this. Now assume that if I have this information, see, now I have test samples. Okay, assume that 20 test samples as we have been considering. okay, need to be classified into these categories. So I can apply nearest neighbor classifier, but every time I have to compare and so on. It is too much tedious. Okay. So this now Bayesian classification, this also, whatever I am discussing now also comes under Bayesian classification. Okay. But what we are trying to do here is, we don't want to take individual comparisons and make a final classification. See, nearest neighbor classifier, the problem is, every time, even though you have 100 samples of class 1 or 1000 samples of class 1, every time you are making an individual comparison and trying to see the closeness or final classification label. Here, I want to get an assimilated information from class 1. I also want to get an assimilated information from class 2 and want to use that for making some decision rule and decision boundary. Okay, and want to find associated probabilities of errors. Okay, that is the task at my hand. Okay, to move forward in this direction, okay, what do you suggest is a good approach to get the assimilated information of class 1 samples and class 2 samples?
I'll take some samples from class 1 and some samples from class 2 as test samples.
No, test samples is different aspect. Training samples first we are discussing now.
Sorry, training samples. I correct myself.
This can be used as training samples.
Training samples.
I have given freedom to use all these as training samples. Okay, all 100 from class 1, 100 from class 2. We have anyway separately 20 for test samples. Yeah, given. Then what do we do next? Say, assume that I have measured only one feature X. Okay, X1 is the feature I have measured. And for that feature, I see, I want to get an assimilated information of class 1. Okay, samples are the how this feature is distributed in class 1 samples. Okay, similarly, I want to know how this feature is distributed in class 2 samples. Okay, assume that I see that I will make a count of this feature. Okay, start, say this feature may be length, so it may be starting from 2, 3, and 5, and so on. Okay, so the feature is, okay, I am plotting a continuous graph. Okay, but I am making a count, okay, at regular intervals. I just connected them to get a continuous plot of count. This is count. Okay. What I'm plotting here?
Histogram.
What is this plot? This plot is histogram. Yeah, it is histogram or probability density function. Fine. Okay, so I can convert this count to frequency. Okay, or frequency. Okay, of what? Omega 1 samples.
Probability of probability of omega given X.
Okay, so somebody is saying probability of omega. Okay,
given X1.
Omega means what? Which omega?
Omega 1.
Omega 1 given X. Which X again?
X1.
X1. Okay, is because we are taking feature 1. Okay, in general, I can consider P of omega 1 given X as well. Okay, so if I take all features together, okay, in multi-dimensional space, omega 1 given X also. Okay, given a specific feature, okay, at X1. Okay, at X1 location. Okay, so the frequency or this is referred to as conditional probability or the likelihood. Okay, so other name for this is conditional probability. What do we mean by conditional probability? We say that we are considering only omega 1 samples. Sorry, is this correct? Whatever I have written. Should I write P of, okay, omega 1 given X or X given omega 1? Which one do you prefer? X1 given omega 1 should I write? Or, okay, just I will write, I will erase again. Okay, P of omega 1 given X1. Which is correct for this? Now let us take the second plot also, then we will discuss. Okay, So similarly, I also made a count of the class 2 samples. Okay, and it has nicely fallen like this. Okay, assume that this is a nice scenario, and hence it has fallen like this. Okay, so and this is the only for omega 2 class samples. Okay, frequency of omega 2 class samples at x given x1. Okay, x at x. Okay, I will drop here x1, it is at x I will write. Okay, because I think I am just writing at a feature. Okay, so at x I am writing. Fine. So now tell me, which one should I use? P of x1 given omega 1 or P of, see this is read as P of x1 given omega 1. Okay, or P of omega 1 given x1, which is correct?
P of x1 given omega 1.
Yeah, why? Because
Because based on knowing that which samples I'm using, I'm trying to find how a particular feature is distributed in those.
right, very good. Correct. So given that they belongs to omega 1, okay, how are they distributed? That's what I'm trying to see. Okay, so here, so that's why we write P of, okay, x1 given omega 2, here omega 2 samples, or P of x given omega 2. Okay, so see PDF for the distribution I'm plotting for what? Am I plotting for omega 1 here? The distribution is for what, or PDF is for what? PDF is only for x. Please make note of it. Okay, but the condition is on omega 1 samples or omega 2 samples. Okay, so this is a conditional probability, that's why it is called. I am conditioning that all omega 1 samples only I am taking and finding their frequency and getting the distribution for x, the feature x. Okay, similarly, I am taking only omega 2 samples and then finding P of x. Okay, so that is written as P of x given omega 2.
Excuse me.
Okay, otherwise I would have written P of x alone. Yeah.
Sir,
Any question?
yes, sir. Just a small doubt. Here you've written x1, x2, so on until x100 next to omega 1. So are they separate features or are they feature vectors for one sample?
Yeah. Can somebody answer it?
The above x, like the capital X is x1, x2 till x100 are like individual feature vectors, and the one we are using here, the probability that we are measuring is for the individual feature, the small x1 till small x2.
Correct. Small x1 are the individual features for a single sample. Okay, and x1 to x100 are several samples. Okay, so if still this notation is confusing, okay, I will try to use this notation of say x1, okay, x2, referring to samples. But because this is used interchangeably because of the context and the frequency of times they need to be used. Okay, so I may not ensure that I will be using this consistently. Okay, but please understand from the context.
Yes,
So x1 to x2 I'm writing here are different samples. Okay,
yes, sir.
These are different of a single sample.
Sir, I was confused because in the second row you wrote x101, x102, and so on. So
right.
Are they also totally? Are they also features? So are that in total 200 features, or are they corresponding to the second class?
Second class, right? These are samples. Okay, 200 samples, total 200 samples we have. Among that, 100 samples are from class 1. Okay, 100 samples are from class 2. Each sample, okay, each sample here, okay, has the features x1 to x3. But for making to be simple, I'm not writing all these indexes everywhere. Okay, but x means a sample. Capital X means a sample. Small x means a feature.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay, fine, good. So now this is referred to as conditional probability or likelihood. Okay, likelihood of x taking a particular probability given that it comes from omega 1 sample. Okay, that is also is other way of referring to. So this are likelihood or conditional probability. given omega 1. Okay, so this is referred in either way. So now the question is, we made these measurements. We are able to make this say aggregate frequency plots, or we are able to get a like overall information of the class distribution of class 1 samples and class 2 samples. Now, given this, we want to use this for framing the decision rules. Given this, how should be my decision rule? Do now using likelihood probability. Likelihood itself is a probability. It's okay. Likelihood probability. So how do we find? What is the decision rule? What decision rule do you suggest? X belongs to omega 1 when? Let us start with 2 class and then extend our decision rules and etc. to multi-class.
Argmax of P of Wi given X.
Okay, that will okay. So I just want X belongs to omega 1 if what? When? No? When I could put X to omega 1 class given the likelihood probabilities.
P of omega 1 given X greater than P of omega 2 greater given X.
That's all. Okay. P of omega 2 given X. Okay. Is this clear? Huh? Okay. So now, yeah. So now, else X belongs to omega 2. Okay. So now the question is, what is the next question here? Omega 2. Well, this is the decision rule we said. Once we write the decision rule, what is the next to be written? After the decision rule?
Probability of error.
Yeah, probability of error we have to write. Okay, so let us write probability of error. What is this? See, here in this case, we will not be directly writing the probability of error. Okay. Because what we are doing, we are measuring at a given, sorry, again I have written omega 2 given X. See, what is more important here is, since we are making the measurements, okay, we have the measurements at hand. So if I ask you to test a test sample, how do you test a test sample? First, let us see how do we put by this. This is just a rule that gives P of X given omega 1 is greater than P of X given omega 2. Okay, please make note that both are different. Okay, P of X given omega 1 is different. P of omega 1 given X are different. Is different. Okay, what does this mean? This is likelihood of belonging to omega 1 class. Okay, if the current measurement is at X. Okay, but or likelihood of the likelihood probability of X given omega I. Okay, that's what is the X given omega 1. But if omega 1 given X is what? Omega 1 given X is, I will be able to tell that the probability of belonging to omega 1 directly. Okay, that is a associating the sample to omega 1 class. What this says is, it only says at a given X, okay, what is its likelihood to belong to omega 1 class? Okay, you got the distinction or not?
So can you repeat it once again?
Yeah, P of X given omega 1 says its probability at given X only. Okay, whether it belongs to omega 1 class, omega 2 class. It doesn't tell overall. Okay, so if you make a measurement again for the test sample, assume that I have a test sample, I got the value of its feature. Then based on that feature, it says which class it may belongs to. But it will not tell overall, okay, so to which class, say it is not the class probability. Okay, so P of omega 1 when we write here, okay, it is the class probability. Here it is a conditional probability. It is saying that if you make this measurement at this measurement, okay, at a given measurement, it's likely that it will belongs to omega 1 class than the omega 2 class. Okay, at this measurement, it is likely that it belongs to omega 1 class than omega 2 class. At this measurement, both are equally likely. At this measurement, it more belongs to omega 2 class. Okay, so this probability is at the given measurement, whereas this probability is for the class. Okay, so later if I write P of omega given, say P of omega given X, again, that also is the probability at a given X. Directly, it is the class probability. I am telling the probability of omega 1 class and omega 2 class. Okay, so that is referred to as posterior probability. Okay, that I will come to that. But for now, you please understand that this is likelihood and gives the probability at a given X. Okay, which it is more likely that at a given X, it belongs to omega 1 class than omega 2 class, or omega 2 class than omega 1 class. That only it gives. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, since capital X is a vector, so what does it mean when we say this probability is greater than this probability?
Okay, so capital X is a vector, fine. But what is P of X given omega 1 or P of X given omega 2? Is it also a vector?
Shouldn't it be, sir? Because we'll have to calculate the probability for each of the features.
Okay, but see, for example, leave this omega 1. Okay, P of X if I want to write. How did we define P of X for a vector X? Huh? You remember? No?
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. If they are independent, P of X2 and so on, finally a scalar. Because if P1, the moment I write P, it means a probability. That's all, it's a number. Okay, irrespective of argument being vector or whatever. Okay?
Yes, sir. Okay.
Fine. Yeah. Okay, given that it is a scalar. Okay, similarly now, say P of C, I just want to, before we discuss the decision, like other things, okay, how to take decision and so on. Okay, so P of X given omega 1 if I ask. Okay, same thing we will expand. So P of, okay, X1 given omega 1 into P of X2 given, if features are independent, okay, then I can write omega 1, okay, into P of X3 given omega 1. So because the sample is same, for that I'm using each feature and getting its probability and then multiplying to get P of X given omega 1, if they're all independent. Okay. Hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
Right. So now the question is, what is the relation? Say if I say that P of X given omega 1 is a distribution, what is the like any mathematical relation that we can use to get some information about P of X given omega 1 that we can enforce on P of X given omega 1? So does this follow any of the mathematical rules or properties?
Bayes theorem, sir.
Bayes theorem and all comes later. It's just a density now for time being. Okay, for all omega 1 samples, I have plot the frequency. Okay, class frequency plot. So what will happen? If I do my minus infinity to infinity, how much this will be?
1.
Yeah. And similarly, okay, integral minus infinity to infinity, P of X given omega 2, okay, is also equal to 1. Okay, because both are two different densities. Okay, so but only thing is, if I want to make a decision rule, what I'm doing, I'm comparing both of them. Okay, so X belongs to, so for example, we can write X belongs to omega I, that is maximum of P of X given omega I for multi-class classification problem. Correct? So in a multi-class classification problem, okay, X belongs to omega I, that is if, okay, P of omega I, sorry, P of X given omega I is greater than or equal to P of X given omega j, okay, for all j, okay, for all classes, okay, j equal to 1 to c, okay, all classes, considering C classes, whichever we have considered before. Fine, this is the decision rule. But the question is, if I want to say if I want to make some say testing, so assume that I have a test sample. Testing procedure we will see to understand how this decision rule acts. What should I do in testing? Take sample X test, for example, and then what I do, sample at next test means for a test sample, make the measurements first. Okay. So X test is the features of test sample. Feature vector of test sample. Using this sample, what do you think I will do? I want to do classification. Okay, so then what do I do? For this feature vector of test sample, if I want to put into omega 1 or omega 2 classes in a 2-class classification problem, what should I do? Yeah, quick answer. What should I do?
Probability
P
of
of
omega.
Probability of what? See what? You people are sleeping or what in the morning? Also mute the people who are not discussing. Okay. And those who are active has to tell. Okay. So we will compare P of X like xt given omega 1 and P of xt given omega 2, and then put omega, so xt to that class where it is, say for example, is belongs to xt, I can say is arc max of, okay, P of omega x given omega 1 or xt given omega 1 comma xt given omega I, put into that category, correct? So xt belongs to that category, correct? So that's what I will do. But now the question is, I may be having several test samples. For every test sample, should I substitute here and keep checking it, okay, and verifying all the time? Or is there any other better procedure for me to do classification? Yeah, anybody want to answer this quickly?
Decision boundaries.
Yeah, you need to find a decision boundary. Say if I know that, say even in one dimension here, okay, so if here, if I want to say that, say this is the decision boundary, okay, where I roughly see that, okay, up to here, okay, class 1 P of X given omega 1 is higher, okay, in this region P of X given omega 1 is higher, in this region P of X given omega 2 is higher, then I say that, okay, up to this region it belongs to, okay, up to this region it belongs to omega 1 class, okay, and this is the omega 1 class, and up to here, from here it belongs to, okay, omega 2 class, okay. So the R, this is belongs to omega 1 class, right? So I will say R1, okay, region R1 where the samples belongs to omega 1 class. This is region R2, okay, where samples are belong to omega 2 class, okay. So I can write like this. I can demarcate the regions just by knowing the expression for P of X given omega 1 and P of X given omega 2. If I know mathematical expressions, correct? Now, this is for one dimension I have shown like this. In I want to do for 2 dimension features, 3 dimensional features, and so on. So what should I, so who will give me where I should separate, where should I demarcate them? The regions of class 1 and class 2 classification.
Excuse me, sir. I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
you brought in this decision boundary because you think this is better than the previous, like argmax of P of Wi.
Right.
But then
correct,
we are using those probabilities only to determine the decision boundary.
No, we are not at all using prior probabilities here. We are using only measurements. So that is completely
Okay,
different
we are
way, completely different way.
So decision boundary using likelihood is better than using prior probabilities.
Yeah, usually it is the case because we make the measurements here. Okay, we are we have the more information here to take a decision.
Okay, sir, I understand.
Right. Now the question is, see, how should I get the decision boundary? In this case, I have clearly shown and I have plotted. But in general case, how do I get the decision boundary?
I mean, can't we plot the probabilities in that dimension and then we can find maybe, sir?
Yeah, see in 2 dimensions itself, plotting is too tedious. So I may at maximum know that a mathematical expression exists. Say I may say that P of x given omega 1 is a normal density with mean mu1 and variance sigma 1 in 2 dimensions. Similarly, I may say that P of x given omega 2 assume that if a nice model is there, I may be able to model that mu2 and sigma 2. Okay. So here in this case, I may be modeling with one-dimensional normal density. Okay, for class 1, class 2 likelihoods. In this case, 2-dimensional Gaussian density. Okay, class 1, class 2. So at the max, I can do only up to that. Okay, but I can't. Plotting is too tedious, right? So in 2 dimensions, plotting them and seeing is difficult. 3 dimensions, you can forget about it. In multiple dimensions, don't even think of. Then what should we do? Our problems are all of 100 dimensions.
We model the entire decision boundary like a polynomial of features, and if it's greater than a certain polynomial, it falls on one side.
Okay, but we can do all that. But give me a simple procedure by looking at it. Can you tell where the decision boundary will be? If I give you P of mathematical expressions for P of x given omega 1 and P of x given omega 2.
Point where probabilities become
Where is the,
equal,
I just want to find.
The
Right.
point when they are equal.
Right. So I will do the same here. So I say that the decision boundary occurs at P of x given omega 1 is equal to P of x given omega 2. Okay, if I use this information, I can then solve this. See, even if in 2 dimensions, I may give it 2-dimensional polynomial, as you said. Okay, but some roots of that polynomial will give me. Okay, in 2 dimensions, what I get is the expression, especially if the samples in 2 dimensions. Okay, so x1, x2, if I measure 2 things, right? Some samples may be here. Okay, some samples may be, or some samples may be here. Okay, so in 2 dimensions, decision boundary, how will it be? Can one of you guess how will be the decision boundary? In 1 dimension, it's a point array. Yeah, it's a
line.
It can be a line.
Arrow.
Yeah, or a curve. It can be a curve. Okay, so decision boundary will be a straight line equation or a curve equation, parabolic equation in 2 dimensions. By solving this, I will exactly get that. Okay, so is this clear? Okay, so now we will stop the discussion of this here. I will give you some mathematical, I will be giving first assignment and I will probably request our students to give second assignment as well. Okay, on this quickly. Okay, so programming assignments will also be coming soon. So get ready for them. Yeah, any questions you can ask.
Yes, sir. In the top right here, you've written xt belongs to argmax of probability of that. So
yeah, xt belongs to argmax of
how is xt belonging to that, sir? So argmax actually will give us the
tell.
So
class, yeah, it will give omega 1 or omega 2. That's why I have written xt belongs to omega 1 or omega 2, right? Argmax will give you not I, but omega I here.
Okay, so this is capital XT. Okay, yes, sir.
Correct. Right, yes. Right. So see, in this case, if I give you like this, will you be able to find the decision boundary where it is? Okay, and then you demarcate the region of R1 and R2 samples? So please try and do it. So now I will give you other possibilities. P of x given omega 1. I think you are exceeding time. Okay, similarly, I will give so x given omega 2 is 0, 4. Okay, so R1, 4. Sorry. Here, let it be 1, 1. Okay, here variance is same, here variance is different. Okay, and P of x given omega 2. So in these two cases, you try to find the decision boundary. Okay, and demarcate, clearly note the region R1 and R2. Okay, that's your exercise for the next class. Okay, so meanwhile, we will try to give assignments formally. Thank you then. I think somebody may be getting late for the next class.
Excuse me, sir.